that subtle change impacted everything. That's the reason the show's still on the air today. And that's the reason every other good thing that's happened to me in the last 20 years has happened, including this weird thing, whatever this is.
This weird interview you're doing now.
This is not an interview. This is some sort of weird performance art.
I know.
Meets a fever dream of something. I don't know what this is.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you come in. Folks, this is the Eric Metaxas Show. I'm interviewing Mike Rowe, who has a show on TBN. At least they tell me, because I have yet to see it. But it's called The Story Behind the Story. It airs Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Now, Mike Rowe, you saw in between the commercial break or whatever this was, your friend and mine, Matt Crouch, came on and told me off camera everything Mike just said is wrong. This whole thing is his idea, whatever. And I'm not surprised to hear that because you're a humble guy. You know, when I ask you who you are, you tell me, you know, your parents and stuff. That's who you are, and it's why you're likable to some. But I keep thinking that you all the shows that you've done, including this one, there's a through line, and it's you. It's your appreciation for people and for jobs and for that kind of thing. So I have to ask you, when you were a kid, where did you grow up, and what did you think you would be doing in the future?
I grew up on a little farm in Baltimore, Maryland, next to a genius named Carl Noble, who happened to be my grandfather. I'm going to stick this back in my ear again real quick and beg
Your
TBN
grandfather
to invest in
was
some
Carl
property
Noble,
things.
the genius, and you lived next door to him. Okay.
Carl Noble could build a house without a blueprint, right? He was that guy. He only went to the 7th grade, but by the time he was 30, he was a master electrician, plumber, steam fitter, pipe fitter. The guy could fix, build, repair, fabricate, anything. My assumption as a kid was that I'd follow in his footsteps. The handy gene, tragically, is recessive, so I did not get the requisite skills necessary to fulfill my early dream. And upon his recommendation, I got a different toolbox and got into this crazy industry and began working. Dirty Jobs, many years later, was a tribute to him. So too was the MicroWorks Foundation, which I'm pleased to say is offering another round of work ethics scholarships. If your viewers are interested, they should apply for one of those things. We give away $1 million a year in my granddad's name. And so, you know, that's really why I do what I do. I got into the business not because I thought I'd be any good at it, but because I really wasn't very good at anything else. Way leads on to way, as the poet says, and the next thing you know, you're sitting there on a couch with Matt Crouch talking about the world.
You know, poetry doesn't have to rhyme, but it's nice that couch and crouch do rhyme in some languages. Yes. Fortunately, in this one, who's the poet that says that way leads on to? I don't know that. I'm a Yale English major, and we didn't study poetry. We studied, you know, critical theory and the end of the world and stuff.
Oh, well, that's a reference to the great Robert Frost, who said, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, but sorry I couldn't travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood, looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, but having perhaps a better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. But as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. Wait for it. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that's made all the difference. Now, finally, here you go. And both that morning equally lay, 2 fields no step had trodden back. I kept the first for another day, but knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I would ever go back.
You know, I really didn't think that we would be reciting Robert Frost's poetry today. And in that, I was obviously wrong.
No one expects poetry.
I love poetry.
And by the way, so is Matt Crouch. And this is the kind of thing we talk about on The Story Behind the Story. He wants to know why I know a poem by Robert Frost, and we take a half hour to explain it. And the next thing you know, you're sucked in and you can't wait for the next episode.
Well, the thing about Robert Frost is himself an inflection point in American culture, because he's right at that moment where poetry that was accessible to the public shifted. He's really the last of that era. And even in his accessible poetry, there's kind of the hint of, I don't know, something grumpier, let's say. He's not Robert Wadsworth Longfellow. But there are very few poems that anyone remembers today. That one, what's the other one? Whose woods are these? I think I know his house is in the village, though. No, to watch the woods fill up with snow.
I do not think you'll mind if we stop and watch his woods fill up with snow. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep.
And miles to go before I sleep, which of course is referring potentially to suicide. The man in the sleigh, in the dark, in the cold, is thinking, do I just sit here and die? I mean, anyway, that's the darker side of Robert Frost. But that poem, I mean, it is a beautiful poem. Way leads on to way. My goodness, I'm so grateful that you did that just now. If only we could get more guests like you. Remind me to fire my producer. I want to ask you.
There are no more guests like me, Eric.
I know.
This is it.
I know.
This is the pinnacle of your career and your show. This is it. It's downhill from here. I'm sorry,
but I would like. But if you think about it, actually, poetry of the kind written in previous times, whether it's Frost or Longfellow or anybody, it was craftsmanship. Not very different from the kinds of craftsmanship that you talk about in your Dirty Jobs show. That there's a pride in it, and you learn over time how to get better. You learn from the masters and stuff, and I think has pretty much gone out in the world of poetry. But I don't want to end on a bummer, so I'm going to ask you one more time. Can't you give me an example of an example from your show without telling the surprise? Like, just give us a flavor of what one of these stories might be like, please, Mike Rowe, please.
Okay, so imagine, if you will, a man completely obsessed with building a better mousetrap. I'm speaking metaphorically. Night after night after night, he goes up into his work area and labors away while his wife cooks another meal that he never eats and his family waits for him. And he never comes back down because he's so obsessed with figuring out a simple formula that will ultimately change the world. And eventually, he does. And when he does, your mind will explode when you ponder the ramifications of the completion of this simple recipe. Now, I could tell you. I could tell you what the recipe is. I could tell you who the guy is.
This is in show business. This is what we call a cliffhanger, folks. When we come back, we'll hear the rest of the story or part of it. We'll be right back. When we last were speaking to Mike Rowe, he was telling us the rest of the story. He almost got to the punchline. I thought, wait a minute, we've got one more segment. Mike, you just did what you do. You create this world. A guy, he's obsessed. He's creating a better mousetrap. He's doing, we've seen movies like this, right? Like the door is locked and he's in there doing something, and he comes out with it's Haydn's, Messiah or whatever, Handel's Messiah. It's something amazing. So you were just kind of going in that direction. Where did we end up just a moment ago?
We thankfully cut to a commercial break right before I spoiled it, right? So now we're back, and I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to tell people that Saturday nights at 9 o'clock, should you tune in to this station, you will hear the story behind the story, and then you will witness two relatively grown men unpacking that story in a way that's filled with more unexpected delights than the human mind can ponder. That's what's going to happen. That's the tease. That's as close as you're going to get to a spoiler from me.
What greater compliment could Matt Crouch give you than to want to do the show with you? I mean, look, if I lived in California, he wouldn't do a show with me. I'm just telling you right now. He must like you very much. And that's where we differ.
Well, I don't know about greater compliment, but, money, like he could pay me. That'd be amazing.
That's not going to happen. This is we just get so silly. People just know when I'm enjoying myself, I just get so silly, and they just turn it off. There's no one listening anymore. This is, how many shows have you done? I mean, this one is called The Story Behind the Story, but you've done a number of TV shows. You just said Dirty Jobs is still on the air in different places. How many different shows have you done over the years?
Well, before Dirty Jobs, I had about 300 gigs in the entertainment business. I was a host on just about every channel. You know, my whole career in those days was based on touching everything like it was hot, you know, so I wasn't looking for a hit. I was just looking to work. So there were some game shows, and there were some talk shows, and there were some appearances on sitcoms. And there was a lot of narration.
Excuse me, appearances
Yes,
on sitcoms?
yes.
That's not in my material here. What sitcoms are we talking about? Come on. That's My
Well, you
Mama
remember
with
a little
Clifton Davis? Was that you?
That was me with Clifton Davis, also on I Love Lucy back in the 50s.
No.
I
Stop it now. You're not that old. So what? Seriously, what sitcoms were
Last
you in?
sitcom I
Maude
did,
with
I
Adrienne
played-
Barbeau?
Stop. Adrienne Barbeau. Now, if you want to talk, never mind. Different show. Tim Allen hired me to play his younger brother on Last Man Standing. That was the kind of thing I did a lot of over the years. Dirty Jobs changed everything, Eric. Dirty Jobs was the first show for me in 2002 that was personal and frankly important. You know, it was dedicated to my granddad, and in it, I was allowed not to be a host. I mean, I could have hosted it, but I looked at myself as more of a guest, and I let the host be the people that I was profiling. And that subtle change impacted everything. That's the reason the show's still on the air today, and that's the reason every other good thing that's happened to me in the last 20 years has happened, including this weird thing, whatever this is.
This weird interview
as
you're
we've
doing
discussed,
now.
This is not an interview. This is some sort of weird performance art.
I know.
Meets a fever dream of something. I don't know what this is, but
but
like we said,
yeah.
You know, no, go ahead. I insist.
Well,
It's your show.
We should go out doing some kind of a duet together, something like that. We could sing "I've Been Everywhere, Man" by
Sure.
Johnny Cash, something like that. You know that song?
Mm-hmm.
I've been everywhere,
I've been
man.
everywhere.
I've been everywhere.
It's
man.
a lot of words.
It's a lot of words. Then you know what? Then
Breathe
how
the
about
mountain
this?
air, man.
I breathe the mountain air, man. Of travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. That song we will not perform together because we're out of time. Mike Rowe, I like you very much. I am really excited that you're on TBN. The show is The Story Behind the Story, Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you for having me here. This was very strange and unforgettable.